In the Amazon, the most frightening predator is not always one animal with teeth. Sometimes it is 1,000 smaller bodies moving as if they share one decision. One insect finds a trail, and suddenly the forest floor changes direction. One alarm signal spreads, and a quiet branch becomes a defense system. One path opens through the leaves, and hundreds of workers turn the jungle into a living conveyor belt. This episode is about the Amazon killers that do not need one giant brain to become terrifying. Their intelligence is spread across bodies, scent, pressure, vibration, and chemical signals. And when the swarm starts thinking as one, the individual victim is already outnumbered by the system. Army ants are not frightening because one ant is impressive. One ant is small, nearly blind, and easy to crush. The fear begins when that one body becomes part of a moving system so large that the forest floor seems to change behavior. At first, the disturbance is subtle. A patch of wet leaf litter begins to tremble. A beetle backs out from beneath a curled leaf. A spider abandons the narrow bark seam where it spent the night hidden. A small cockroach shoots across open ground, choosing exposure over whatever is coming through the roots behind it. Then the camera lowers into the dark space beneath the understory, and the shape of the threat becomes visible. Thousands of army ants flowing forward in raid columns, crossing leaves, roots, stones, and fallen twigs like a living pressure wave. This is the strongest expression of swarm intelligence in the Amazon. The colony does not hunt like a jaguar, with one brain reading the forest through sight, memory, and muscle. It does not wait like a caiman, turning patience into violence at the edge of the water. Army ants work through something colder and more distributed. Each worker follows simple rules: detect chemical trails, touch nestmates, respond to prey, reinforce successful routes, and keep moving when the signal is strong. Alone, those rules are limited. Repeated thousands of times, they become coordination. One ant finds a productive path and lays down scent as it returns. Others follow that chemical line and strengthen it with their own movement. More workers arrive, traffic increases, and the route becomes more powerful because it is being used. The colony is not following a map. It is writing the map beneath itself as it moves. The Amazon forest floor is a world built around hiding. Most of its small animals survive by disappearing into texture. A cricket becomes a shadow under a dead leaf. A beetle vanishes beneath loose bark. A centipede slides into a root crack. A frog presses its body against damp soil and trusts stillness more than speed. Army ants attack that entire strategy. They do not need to see every prey animal from a distance. Their power is contact. Workers pore under leaf edges, climb over bark fragments, probe rotten wood, and push into the tiny shelters where larger predators cannot reach. The swarm turns hiding places into traps. A gap that protected an insect from birds a minute ago can become a tunnel full of biting ants. The safest place suddenly becomes the worst place to stay. That is why an army ant raid affects more animals than the ants actually kill. The swarm changes the risk map of the forest. Hidden prey are forced into motion, and motion is dangerous. Insects leap, run, or fly in panic. Spiders leave retreats. Small frogs and lizards may break cover when the ants penetrate the leaf litter around them. Many escape the ants only to expose themselves to another predator watching from above or beside the raid. Ant-following birds understand this perfectly. They often do not feed on the ants themselves. Instead, they track the swarm and snatch the insects and small animals flushed from cover. The ants become an unwilling hunting tool for other predators. The raid is not just a feeding event, It is a temporary disturbance that reorganizes the whole floor community. The intelligence of the swarm comes from feedback. If a route works, more ants use it. If prey is found, more workers are drawn in. If an obstacle blocks the way, the ants do not stop and solve it like a thinking mammal. They test it with bodies. Some climb over, some move around, some find a narrow bridge across a twig or root. Traffic shifts toward whatever path keeps the flow moving. The solution appears through repetition, not planning. This is what makes army ants so fascinating and so unsettling. No individual worker needs to understand the whole raid. The colony's behavior emerges from thousands of small reactions happening at once. Seen from above, a raid can look almost like a dark river system spreading through the leaf litter. Dense columns act like main channels, carrying workers to and from the active front. Smaller branches probe outward, searching through debris and shelters. At the edges, ants test everything: the underside of leaves, the spaces beneath bark, the soft tunnels in rotting wood, the folds around roots. When prey is found, workers gather fast. A single insect that could overpower one ant becomes vulnerable when seized from many directions. Legs are pinned, antennae are bitten, soft joints are attacked. More ants arrive along the reinforced route, and the prey is overwhelmed by accumulation rather than one dramatic strike. That accumulation is the real weapon. One bite is survivable. Hundreds are a system. Army ants show how small forces become dangerous when they are synchronized. Their mandibles are not built for cinematic spectacle. They are tools for gripping, cutting, and holding in a crowded fight. The prey is not defeated by a single heroic killer. It is reduced by contact, pressure, and persistence. This makes the swarm feel less like an animal and more like a process. It searches, flushes, surrounds, dismantles, and moves on. The raid also reveals how much life is normally hidden in the Amazon's lower layers. To a person walking upright, the forest floor may look like mud, leaves, roots, and fallen branches. But when army ants pass through, that surface erupts with animals trying to escape. The swarm exposes the density of the ecosystem. Every curled leaf becomes a possible shelter. Every bark crack becomes a hiding place. Every small movement becomes part of a larger chain reaction. The ants are predators, but they are also biological disturbance machines, forcing the invisible forest to reveal itself. Their colony life makes the behavior even more remarkable. Army ants are not simply wandering mobs. Many species move through cycles, with periods of intense raiding and periods when the colony is more stationary. Some form temporary living nests or bivouacs, made from the bodies of workers linked together around the queen and brood. The colony itself becomes shelter. This matters because it shows that their swarm intelligence is not only about hunting. The same collective rules that organize a raid also help protect young, relocate the colony, and keep the whole society functioning without a fixed nest in the way many other ants use one. On the forest floor, the raid feels immediate and physical. The air is damp with soil, fungus, and crushed vegetation. Leaves twitch as workers pass beneath them. A beetle tumbles from a bark flake and is swallowed by the moving front. A spider drops from its retreat and lands in a path already occupied by ants. Above the scene, an antbird shifts position, waiting for flushed prey. Nothing here is random, even though no single ant is in charge. The colony is using chemistry, contact, and movement to turn a chaotic environment into a readable one. That is why army ants are the perfect opener. They destroy the simple idea that a predator must be one powerful body. In the Amazon, danger can arrive as coordination. It can come without eyes, without a roar, without a dramatic ambush. One ant reacts, another follows, and the signal strengthens until thousands of bodies are moving with one apparent purpose. The ground does not literally think, but for every animal hiding in the leaf litter, the difference hardly matters. The shelter around them is being searched. The exits are changing. The pressure is spreading, and for a few hours, the forest floor behaves as if it has become one living thing. Leafcutter ants bring a different kind of fear to the Amazon floor. They do not arrive like army ants, turning hidden shelters into panic and forcing small animals into the open. Their power is quieter, cleaner, and in some ways more disturbing. At first, the scene looks almost harmless, a green fragment of leaf moving by itself across the soil. Then another, then hundreds. The camera lowers to the forest floor and the illusion breaks. Each moving leaf is carried by a worker ant, and the pieces form a bright green procession stretching through roots, fallen branches, mud, and shadow. It is not a swarm in the sense of blind attack. It is a transport system, a road, a living supply chain. A single leafcutter ant is almost meaningless in the scale of the rainforest. It cannot dominate a tree, reshape soil, or feed a colony alone. But the colony is the real organism here, and the individual ant is only one moving part inside it. Together, leafcutter ants become one of the Amazon's most impressive examples of swarm intelligence because their society does not simply react to the environment. It engineers the environment. Their trails cut through the forest like tiny highways. Their workers divide into specialized roles. Their harvests feed an underground agricultural system. Their communication moves through chemical signals, touch, vibration, and repeated traffic. The result is not chaos. It is organized power. The most visible sign of that power is the trail. On the forest floor, leafcutter highways can become worn into the soil by constant use, cleared of debris by workers that maintain the route like road crews. Leaves, twigs, and obstacles are moved or bypassed. Traffic flows in two directions. Empty workers heading out toward fresh vegetation, loaded workers returning with cut pieces held above their bodies like green sails. The trail may bend around roots, disappear beneath vines, climb over logs, and continue with the stubborn logic of a trade route. It is easy to look at this and see only repetition, but repetition is exactly the point. The colony succeeds because it makes movement predictable. A good path becomes stronger the more it is used, and chemical trails help bind thousands of tiny decisions into one shared direction. In the canopy and understory, the cutting begins with a precision that looks almost industrial. Workers climb onto leaves and use their sharp mandibles to carve curved sections from the edge. The ant's body becomes a living cutting tool anchored by its legs, while the jaws work through plant tissue. The piece may be larger than the ant itself, but the worker does not need to understand the whole harvest. It only needs to cut, lift, balance, and return. Around it, other workers perform the same task, and the leaf slowly becomes perforated by bite marks until pieces vanish into the moving line below. What looks like a simple act of removal is actually the first stage of agriculture. The leaves are not eaten directly in the way many people assume. Leafcutter ants harvest vegetation to feed a fungus cultivated inside the colony. Underground, away from the visible trail, the true center of the system is a living garden. Workers bring leaf fragments into chambers where they are cleaned, cut into smaller pieces, and prepared as a substrate for fungal growth. The colony feeds on specialized fungal structures, making the ants farmers in one of the most sophisticated non-human agricultural systems on Earth. They do not just collect food, they grow it. The forest above becomes raw material for a hidden crop below. That fungal agriculture changes the meaning of everything happening on the trail. The ants carrying leaf fragments are not just foragers returning with a meal, they are supply workers feeding an underground economy. The cutting teams, carriers, cleaners, guards, and garden workers are connected by a system larger than any one ant can perceive. A piece of leaf cut high on a plant may pass through the jaws and legs of multiple workers before it becomes part of the fungal garden. At each stage, the colony applies labor where it is needed, not through a central command, but through local signals and inherited behavioral roles shaped by size, age, and task. Division of labor is one of the reasons leafcutter colonies feel so advanced. Not every worker does the same job. Larger workers can cut and carry heavier pieces. Smaller workers may ride on leaf fragments as guards, protecting carriers from parasitic flies that try to lay eggs on exposed ants. Other tiny workers tend the fungal garden, remove contaminants, care for brood, or maintain the nest. Soldiers defend the colony with larger heads and stronger mandibles. This is not equality, it is efficiency. The colony works because bodies of different sizes solve different problems. A small ant is useless as a heavy carrier, but perfect for delicate garden work. A large worker is poorly suited for fine cleaning, but powerful on a cutting line or in defense. The swarm becomes intelligent by matching labor to biology. Chemical communication holds the system together. Leafcutter ants use pheromones to mark trails, recruit workers, signal alarm, and coordinate activity. To a human observer, the trail looks visual because we see the moving leaves. To the ants, it is more like a landscape of invisible instructions. A successful route is chemically reinforced. A threat can trigger alarm signals. Contact between workers transfers information through touch and scent. The colony does not need language because the environment becomes the message board. The soil, the trail, the bodies of nestmates, and the harvested material all carry information. This is where leafcutters prove that hive mind is not only about violence. Army ants show swarm intelligence as pressure and attack. Leafcutter ants show it as logistics. They build reliable routes, allocate workers, protect cargo, process raw material, cultivate food, defend infrastructure, and manage waste. That last part matters more than it sounds. A fungus garden is vulnerable to disease and contamination. Waste must be moved away from the productive chambers, and unhealthy material must be controlled before it threatens the colony's food supply. In a humid rainforest, where fungi and microbes grow aggressively, agriculture is not just planting and feeding. It is sanitation, disease management, and constant maintenance. The nest itself is an engineering project. Beneath the surface, leafcutter colonies can form complex networks of tunnels and chambers. Some spaces hold fungus gardens, others contain brood. Waste areas may be separated from clean zones. Ventilation and temperature matter because the fungus depends on a stable environment. The Amazon may seem uniformly hot and wet from above, but underground conditions vary by depth, chamber structure, soil type, and airflow. By excavating, moving soil, and organizing chambers, the colony modifies its own microclimate. It creates a controlled interior world beneath a chaotic forest. This engineering also affects the wider ecosystem. Leafcutter ants can remove large amounts of vegetation, influence plant growth, redistribute nutrients, and alter soil structure. Their excavations turn and aerate soil. Their waste enriches certain areas. Their trails open tiny corridors through the leaf litter. Their choices of plants can shape local vegetation pressure. They are not just insects passing through the Amazon. They are ecological forces, constantly moving plant material from above ground into underground systems and back into the soil through waste and decomposition. In a forest, where every nutrient is quickly recycled, that movement matters. There is also risk built into this power. A trail full of loaded workers attracts attention. Birds, spiders, lizards, parasitic flies, and other predators or parasites can exploit the steady flow. A carrier holding a large leaf piece is less agile than an empty worker, and the cargo can turn the ant into a visible target. The small guard ants riding on leaf fragments are not decorative. They are part of the colony's defense against that vulnerability. The system creates abundance, but abundance creates exposure. Any logistics network has weak points, and the forest is always looking for them. Still, the colony keeps moving. That is the impressive part. Rain can damage trails, fallen debris can block routes. Plant chemistry can make some leaves unsuitable. Predators can pick off workers. Microbes can threaten the garden. Yet the system persists because no single failure breaks the whole colony. Workers redirect. Trails shift. Labor flows toward problems. The colony absorbs disturbance through numbers, redundancy, and constant feedback. It is not perfect, but it is resilient. And in the Amazon, resilience is often more important than strength. Leafcutter ants make the video smarter because they expand the meaning of swarm intelligence. They show that a hive mind is not just a wave of bodies overwhelming prey. It can also be an economy, a farm, a road network, a sanitation system, a defense force, a climate-controlled underground city powered by leaves cut from the forest above. The violence here is not dramatic, but it is real in a slower way. A colony can strip branches, redirect nutrients, and turn living vegetation into fungal fuel. It does not need rage, it needs organization. By the time the camera pulls back, the green procession no longer looks cute or random. It looks like infrastructure. Each ant is small, but the line is enormous in meaning. One worker cuts, another carries, another guards, another cleans, another tends the fungus in darkness. None of them understands the whole machine, yet the machine works. That is the deeper lesson of leafcutter ants. Intelligence does not always look like a brain making decisions. Sometimes it looks like a road worn into the mud, a chemical trail no human can see, a hidden garden breathing beneath the soil, and thousands of tiny workers turning the Amazon itself into supply. Bullet ants bring the hive mind idea into a more personal kind of danger. Army ants turn the forest floor into a moving front. Leafcutter ants turn the forest into a supply network. Bullet ants do something different. They turn territory into a warning system. A branch, a root, a trunk, or the shaded base of a tree is not just background when a colony is nearby. It becomes part of a defended zone, and the animal that steps into it is no longer dealing with one insect. It has entered a space where information moves fast, where disturbance becomes alarm, and where a small mistake can activate pain from more than one direction. The scene begins quietly, high enough above the forest floor that the danger is easy to underestimate. A dark worker moves along a tree trunk, large for an ant, deliberate in its steps, with long legs lifting over ridges of bark and wet moss. Another follows a narrow route along a root buttress. A third disappears into a crevice near the base of the tree. There is no swarm pouring across the ground, no bright green leaf procession, no visible chaos. That is exactly why the danger feels sharper. Bullet ants do not need spectacle to control space. Their strength is in the defended boundary around the nest and in the speed with which that boundary can wake up. A single bullet ant is already intimidating by ant standards. Its body is large, dark and muscular, with powerful mandibles and a sting capable of delivering one of the most notoriously painful venoms in the insect world. But the real story is not simply that the sting hurts. That angle is too basic and, honestly, too shallow. The smarter angle is that the sting belongs to a colony defense system. Pain is the final result of a chain of information: disturbance, detection, alarm, movement, recruitment, contact, and attack. The victim does not just get stung by an ant. It enters a defended zone and triggers a living security network. Bullet ants often nest near the bases of trees, using the surrounding trunk, roots and vegetation as foraging routes and defensive terrain. To a passing animal, those surfaces look like ordinary rainforest structure. To the colony, they are highways, lookout posts, and boundaries. Workers move through these routes with a sensitivity shaped by constant contact with the environment. Their antennae read chemical traces, surface textures, nestmate signals, and possible threats. The colony's world is not built mainly from distant vision. It is built from close-range information: scent, vibration, touch, and chemical change. When something disturbs the nest area, that information does not stay private for long. Alarm communication is where bullet ants become dangerous as a collective system. Ants can release chemical signals that change the behavior of nearby workers, turning ordinary movement into defensive readiness. One worker that detects serious disturbance can influence others through alarm cues and direct contact. Nearby ants become more alert, more aggressive, and more likely to move toward the source. The important point is that the response spreads through the colony's local network. The tree and root system do not literally have nerves, but in practical terms, the colony uses them like extensions of its body. A vibration on bark, a crushed worker, a disturbed entrance, or repeated movement near the nest can become information that travels through ants already positioned along the roots. For a small mammal, bird, reptile, or careless larger animal, the first warning may not look dramatic. A few workers turn. Another emerges from a crack near the root. One ant lifts its body and angles toward the disturbance. Then the defended zone starts to feel crowded. This is where bullet ants differ from a random, painful encounter. The threat is not isolated. More workers may appear from nearby roots, not because they understand the entire event, but because the local signals tell them that something is wrong. Each ant reacts within its range, but the result is coordinated punishment. The victim has not stepped on an insect. It has stepped into a colony's alarm field. The sting itself is the reason this defense works so well. Bullet ant venom is famous because of the intensity and duration of pain it can cause, but biologically, that pain is not theatrical cruelty. It is function. A colony that nests on or near trees must defend vulnerable entrances, brood, workers, and foraging routes from animals much larger than itself. A painful sting changes the cost of interference. A predator or accidental intruder learns quickly that this patch of bark or root is not worth testing again. In rainforest ecology, defense does not always require killing the attacker. Sometimes the better strategy is to create a memory so unpleasant that the attacker avoids the area in the future. That is what makes bullet ant defense feel personal. Army ants create panic by numbers. Leafcutters impress through logistics. Bullet ants punish contact. The sting collapses the distance between ecosystem and body. Pain becomes the message. A branch that looked harmless becomes associated with immediate consequence. A route that seemed like a stepping point becomes a boundary. The colony weaponizes territory by making the environment memorable. This is not random aggression. It is a form of spatial control. The forest gives the ants perfect architecture for this kind of defense. Trees in the Amazon are not clean vertical poles. Their bases can be armored with buttress roots, bark fissures, moss mats, vines, fallen leaves, and damp cavities. These structures create protected nest sites and complex movement routes. A bullet ant worker can patrol a trunk, descend to the roots, cross leaf litter, and return through shaded channels that larger animals barely notice. The colony does not need to dominate open ground. It controls key surfaces. In a rainforest, surfaces are everything. The underside of a leaf, the side of a trunk, the seam between root and soil, the narrow bridge of a fallen branch. Bullet ants use these surfaces as a defensive map. Their large size also changes the psychology of the encounter. Many ants can be brushed aside without much thought. Bullet ants do not disappear so easily into the background. When one moves across bark, it has presence. Its body is heavy enough to be seen, its legs long enough to give it a spider-like seriousness, and its behavior controlled enough to feel intentional. That impression can be misleading if we imagine human-like thought behind it, but it is accurate in one important sense. The ant is part of a system tuned to defend. It is not wandering aimlessly. It belongs to a colony that has roots, nest entrances, chemical information, and a territory worth protecting. The colony's defense also protects its foraging life. Bullet ants are not only guards waiting at a nest. Workers move through the vegetation searching for food, including nectar, plant exudates, and small animal prey or carrion. They operate in a vertical world where the ground and the trees are connected by living roads. This matters because their territory is not a flat circle around a hole in the soil. It can extend upward and outward through vegetation. A disturbed tree root can bring defensive ants from multiple positions, making the encounter feel as if the trunk itself has awakened. Predators and parasites still exist around them. No defense makes an animal untouchable. Birds, specialized arthropods, pathogens, and environmental pressures all remain part of the system. But bullet ants have made themselves expensive to attack. In the economy of rainforest survival, that is a serious achievement. Many animals survive not by being impossible to kill, but by being costly enough that predators choose easier options. Bright warning colors do this in poison frogs. Spines do it in caterpillars and fish. Bullet ants do it through size, readiness, and pain. There is a colder lesson here about swarm intelligence. It does not always look like thousands of bodies moving at once. Sometimes it looks like a territory that reacts faster than the intruder expects. The mind is not in one ant, and it is not floating magically above the colony. It is distributed through workers, chemical cues, nest entrances, patrol routes, and the surfaces they occupy. The branch becomes meaningful because ants move over it. The trunk becomes dangerous because it carries their signals. The root becomes part of the colony because disturbance there can activate workers nearby. The environment is not separate from the hive mind. It is the stage on which the hive mind works. By the time the camera pulls back, the bullet ant colony no longer looks like a few oversized insects scattered on bark. It looks like a defended system wrapped around a tree. Somewhere below, the nest holds the center of that system. Around it, workers patrol routes that have been tested and reinforced through use. Chemical information lingers on surfaces. Alarm can spread through contact and scent. A careless touch can turn stillness into movement. And if the threat does not retreat, the colony has a final signal written directly into the nerves of the intruder. That is why bullet ants belong in this chapter. They prove that swarm intelligence can become territory, and territory can become pain. One ant is dangerous enough to remember. A colony is worse because it does not wait for danger to arrive neatly from one direction. It surrounds its most important space with signals, workers, and consequences. In the Amazon, a tree is not always just a tree. Sometimes it is a fortress with bark for walls, roots for roads, chemistry for communication, and ants that can make one wrong step feel unforgettable. Wasps change the direction of fear. Until now, the hive mind has belonged mostly to the ground. Ants moving through leaf litter, building highways, defending roots and trunks. Wasps lift that same idea into the air, and that changes everything. The forest floor gives an animal places to run, climb, hide, or press itself into shadow. Air does not offer that comfort. When a wasp colony activates, the danger is no longer only underfoot or on bark. It comes from every angle at once, fast, unstable, and difficult to track. A nest hidden under a branch, inside a hollow, beneath a leaf cluster, or tucked into the architecture of the canopy can turn one careless movement into a sudden aerial response. The victim may not even see the structure it has disturbed. That is what makes wasps so tense. The nest can be invisible, but the reaction is not. At first, the scene looks ordinary. A humid Amazon morning hangs over the understory. Leaves drip from last night's rain. Small flies hover in shafts of light, and the air seems crowded but harmless. Somewhere near a trunk or branch, a paper-like nest sits partly hidden in vegetation, built from plant fibers chewed and shaped into a strong, lightweight structure. Workers pass in and out, not randomly, but with the steady rhythm of a society maintaining brood, nest walls, food flow, and defense. From a distance, it is easy to miss. That is the trap. In the rainforest, not every dangerous structure announces itself with color, sound, or size. Some are simply part of the background until the background reacts. A single wasp is already more complicated than it looks. It is a flying sensor equipped to read movement, chemical signals, vibration, and visual disturbance. But as with ants, the real power appears when individual reactions connect. A worker near the nest detects a threat. It may be a branch shake, a mammal brushing through foliage, a bird probing too close, or a larger animal disturbing the entrance zone. That first response matters because social wasps can use alarm pheromones to recruit and excite nestmates. The attack does not depend on one wasp deciding to be brave. It depends on a communication system that turns local disturbance into colony-wide readiness. One worker reacts, others receive the signal, and the air around the nest begins to organize. This is aerial hive mind pressure. The swarm does not need to pour from the ground in a visible line. It expands outward from a hidden center. Workers leave the nest, circle, orient, and move toward the disturbance. The threat field grows in seconds. What was empty air becomes defended space. This is the strongest angle for wasps. The nest does not have to be seen for the colony to behave as if the intruder has crossed a boundary. The boundary is not painted on the tree. It is maintained by workers, scent, vibration, memory of the nest site, and the defensive sensitivity of the colony. A passing animal experiences it only after it has already stepped too close. The first sting is not always the end of the event. That is the important distinction. Many predators deliver one decisive bite, one strike, one grip. Wasps can punish through repetition. Their stingers are not single-use weapons like those of honeybees. Many wasps can sting more than once. That makes their defense especially effective against large intruders. One sting says leave. Several stings from several directions say leave now. Venom produces pain, irritation, and inflammation. But the deeper biological function is deterrence. A nest full of larvae and developing young cannot run away. It must make invasion expensive. The colony defends by converting contact into consequence. The attack feels chaotic to the victim, but it is not mindless. Wasps moving in defense are responding to cues that concentrate attention around the threat. Alarm pheromones can mark the situation with urgency. Movement and proximity help guide attacks. A dark moving body near the nest can become the focus of repeated strikes. The wasps do not need a full understanding of the animal they are attacking. They only need enough information to classify it as danger and enough cooperation to drive it away. This is the same swarm principle seen in ants, but expressed in 3 dimensions. The response is harder to escape because the attackers are not bound to trails. They can rise, circle, follow, and strike exposed skin, eyes, ears, nostrils, or any vulnerable area not protected by fur, feathers, or scales. In the Amazon, this kind of defense has real ecological weight. Wasps are not only stinging hazards, they are predators, builders, scavengers, and pollinators in certain contexts. Many hunt caterpillars and other insects, carrying prey back to feed larvae. Adult wasps often rely on sugars, nectar, fruit juices, or plant exudates for energy, while the colony's young require protein. This split in diet creates a constant flow of work. Adults fuel themselves, hunt for larvae, maintain the nest, regulate heat, remove waste, and defend the structure. A wasp nest is not just a paper shell. It is a nursery, a fortress, and a processing center suspended in a forest full of animals that would happily eat its brood if defense failed. Nest location is part of the strategy. A colony built under a branch, in dense vegetation, or against a protected surface gains shelter from rain, sun, and some predators. But it also creates a defensive problem. The nest must be accessible to workers and difficult for enemies to exploit. Tropical conditions add pressure. Heat, humidity, and rainfall can threaten the nest structure and the brood inside. Workers may fan, shade, adjust their position, or use nest architecture to help regulate conditions. The colony survives not simply by attacking, but by maintaining a stable internal environment in one of the least stable habitats on Earth. That is the hidden side of the swarm. Defense is dramatic, but maintenance is what keeps the system alive. The nest also changes the behavior of other animals around it. A bird that raids insects from leaves may avoid a branch once defensive wasps are active. A monkey moving through the canopy can learn that certain hidden structures are not worth disturbing. A small mammal climbing after fruit may retreat after a few painful encounters. Even predators capable of feeding on wasps or larvae must manage risk carefully. In this way, the colony creates a zone of influence larger than the nest itself. The structure is small, but the defended air around it changes movement decisions for other creatures. The hive mind projects itself outward. That projection is what makes the scene so powerful for a documentary. The camera does not need to show a monster. It can show a quiet branch, a hidden nest, a slight disturbance, and then the sudden transformation of air into intent. A few dark bodies lift from the surface, then more. Their flight paths cross, tighten, and focus. The sound changes before the viewer fully understands why. What seemed like background insect noise becomes directed pressure. The victim backs away, but the response may follow for several meters, especially if alarm cues remain strong and the animal keeps moving in ways that stimulate pursuit. The forest has not become angry, the colony has become informed. This is where wasps sharpen the video's central idea. Swarm intelligence is not one mood. It can be attack, farming, territory, or defense. In wasps, it becomes aerial control. They prove that a hive mind can occupy space without filling it visibly all the time. The defended zone is latent, waiting inside the colony's sensory system. The nest is quiet until it is not. The air is empty until it organizes. That sudden switch is what makes social wasps so effective and so unnerving. They compress the distance between mistake and punishment. By the end of the chapter, the hidden nest should no longer feel like background detail. It should feel like a nervous center suspended in the forest. Around it, workers patrol, forage, repair, feed larvae, read chemical signals, and hold the colony's boundary in place. A branch is no longer just a branch. A patch of air is no longer neutral. Somewhere in the leaves, a paper fortress listens through the bodies of its workers, and when something comes too close, the response does not arrive as one sting from one insect. It arrives as information becoming movement, movement becoming pursuit, and pursuit turning the air itself into a weapon. Termites are the sleeper chapter because they do not enter the story with obvious violence. They do not sweep across the leaf litter like army ants, carve green supply highways like leaf cutters, or turn a hidden nest into aerial punishment like wasps. At first, termites barely seem to be doing anything at all. A damp log rests in the shade. A strip of bark flakes away. A small earthen tube runs up the side of a trunk like a dried vein. The forest feels still, but that stillness is the trick. Beneath bark, inside dead wood, under soil, and within mounds shaped from mud, saliva, and waste, termite colonies are operating as hidden construction systems. They are not impressive because one termite understands architecture. They are impressive because none of them does, and the structure still rises. This is collective intelligence in its pure building form. A termite colony does not need cinematic attack behavior to prove the central idea of the video. In some ways, it proves it better. The Amazon is not only filled with animals, it is filled with distributed systems that behave like larger organisms. A colony can build, repair, feed, defend, ventilate, expand, and recycle wood without a single member holding the full plan in its head. One termite responds to moisture, scent, touch, carbon dioxide, vibration, and the work already done by others. Another follows. A small deposit of soil becomes a cue. A tunnel edge becomes a guide. A breach in the wall becomes an emergency. From these tiny reactions, the colony creates architecture. The visible mound, when there is one, is only the surface expression of a much deeper society. Some termite species build prominent structures above ground, while others live more quietly inside wood, soil, or carton-like nests attached to trees. In the rainforest, where dampness, decay, and plant material are everywhere, termites occupy one of the most important jobs in the ecosystem. They break down dead wood and plant matter that many animals cannot digest. This sounds less exciting than a sting or swarm attack, but it is not minor. Wood is locked carbon, packed with cellulose and lignin, difficult materials that resist easy breakdown. Termites, with help from microbes in their gut or other symbiotic digestion systems depending on the group, turn that tough plant material back into usable nutrients. They are not just living in the forest, they are helping the forest digest itself. Their tunnels are where the hidden intelligence becomes visible. A termite moving in open air is vulnerable. Its body is soft, moisture-sensitive, and attractive to ants, spiders, lizards, birds, and countless opportunists. So the colony builds covered passageways through soil, bark, and plant material. These tunnels are not decoration. They are protected roads, climate buffers, and defensive corridors. A worker can move from nest to feeding site without exposing itself fully to dry air or predators. The tunnel holds humidity, controls access, and lets the colony extend its reach into new food sources. In the logic of termites, construction is survival. The architecture is not designed by a leader. It grows through a process called stigmergy, where the work already done becomes the signal for more work. A termite deposits a small pellet of mud or processed material. That deposit changes the local environment. Other termites encounter it, respond to its shape or chemical cues, and add more material nearby. The structure guides its own construction. This is the same deeper principle seen across swarm intelligence, but here it becomes walls, tubes, chambers, and repair patches instead of raid fronts or foraging trails. The colony uses the environment as its memory. The plan is not stored inside one brain. It is stored in the arrangement of building material, scent, airflow, humidity, and traffic. Inside the colony, division of labor gives the system strength. Workers handle the constant business of feeding, grooming, building, and caring for young. Soldiers exist for defense, often with enlarged heads, powerful jaws, or specialized chemical weapons depending on the species. Reproductives maintain the colony's future. None of these castes is independent in a meaningful way. A soldier may be well armed, but unable to feed itself properly without workers. Workers can build and feed, but rely on soldiers when predators breach the walls. The colony functions because its bodies are specialized. It is not a crowd of equal insects. It is a living system divided into parts, each limited alone and powerful together. Defense in termites is quiet until the wall breaks. A predator opening a tunnel or nest chamber does not find helpless insects scattered randomly. Soldiers move toward the breach. Workers retreat, repair, or continue emergency tasks. Chemical signals and vibration help organize the response. Some termite soldiers block narrow passages with their heads like living doors. Others bite, spray, or smear defensive secretions. The point is not to win a dramatic duel against a larger predator. The point is to delay, seal, redirect, and preserve the colony's core. Termite defense is architecture plus bodies. A soldier is more effective because the tunnel is narrow. A wall is more useful because soldiers can defend the opening. The colony's strength comes from the way structure and behavior reinforce each other. Repair may be the most underrated part of termite intelligence. In the rainforest, damage is constant. Rain softens surfaces. Falling branches crush tunnels. Ants invade. Animals tear into wood. Heat and moisture shift. A breach in a termite structure is dangerous because it exposes the colony to air, predators, and changing humidity. Workers can respond quickly by rebuilding damaged sections, sealing gaps, and restoring the controlled interior. Again, no termite needs to understand the building is broken in a human sense. Local cues are enough. A sudden opening changes airflow, light, scent, and contact patterns. Those changes trigger repair behavior. The colony senses damage through the disturbance itself. This is why termite architecture feels almost alive. A mound or nest is not simply a shelter built once and used passively. It is maintained, adjusted, and defended continuously. Its walls regulate the colony's relationship with the outside world. In some termite systems, mound architecture helps manage temperature, humidity, and gas exchange. Even where the structures are smaller or hidden, the same principle matters. Termites need stable internal conditions. Their bodies can dry out easily, and their symbiotic digestion depends on a controlled biological environment. The colony builds not only to hide, but to create a climate where its internal machinery can keep working. The Amazon rewards that kind of engineering. The forest is wet, hot, crowded, and full of dead plant matter. Every fallen branch becomes a temporary bank of nutrients. Every rotting trunk becomes a possible feeding zone. Termites move through this world like invisible recyclers, turning collapse into fertility. Their feeding opens wood for fungi, bacteria, beetles, and other decomposers. Their tunnels mix soil and organic material. Their waste contributes to nutrient cycling. A mound can influence local soil conditions and create microhabitats for other organisms. The termite colony is not separate from the ecosystem. It is one of the machines that keeps the ecosystem moving. There is also a strange tension in how much of this power remains unseen. The rainforest viewer is trained to look for big eyes, jaws, claws, colors, and sudden movement. Termites punish that shallow attention. Their importance is mostly hidden under surfaces. A log that looks solid may be hollowed by galleries. A tree trunk may be crossed by covered runways. A mound may contain an organized world of workers, soldiers, brood, chambers, and controlled airflow. The forest is full of societies that do not perform for the camera. They simply work, and the work reshapes the habitat. That is why termites belong in this video. They widen the definition of hive mind beyond attack, pain, and spectacle. They show that collective intelligence can be constructive, not just destructive. The same principles that let ants raid or wasps defend can also build cities from soil and saliva. Simple local rules, repeated by thousands of bodies, become large-scale order. A tunnel extends. A chamber forms. A breach closes. A soldier holds a passage. A worker deposits one more pellet where the structure tells it to build. By the end of this chapter, the sleeper subject should not feel small. It should feel like a hidden civilization beneath the obvious jungle. Above ground, the Amazon appears to be trees, vines, animals, rain, and green light. Beneath that image are systems inside systems. Colonies eating wood, building roads, regulating air, defending chambers, and repairing damage before disaster spreads. Termites prove the central thesis with brutal elegance. The rainforest is not just a place where animals live. It is a place where thousands of tiny bodies combine into something larger than animal instinct. No termite understands the whole colony, but the colony behaves as if it understands the forest. Mosquitoes are the right closer because they break the rules set by the earlier chapters. They do not build a fortress like termites, defend a paper nest like wasps, cultivate a hidden farm like leafcutters, or move as one colony body like army ants. There is no queen commanding a feeding cloud from a secret chamber. There is no single nest boundary that turns into a defensive alarm field. And yet, when the air above stagnant water thickens at dusk and dozens of tiny insects begin to orbit the same warm body, the result feels unmistakably collective. The intelligence is looser, simpler, and more brutal. It is not a hive mind built from social organization. It is many separate nervous systems reading the same biological signal and reaching the same conclusion. There is blood here. The scene begins at the edge of still water, where the forest holds its breath after rain. A shallow pool sits in a hoof print, a fallen palm cup, a flooded root hollow, or a quiet ditch beside the trail. The surface looks harmless, only a thin mirror of green canopy and broken sky. But stagnant water is not empty water, it is nursery space. Mosquito larvae hang beneath the surface, breathing at the boundary between air and water, feeding on microscopic organic material and waiting through a stage of life that has nothing to do with blood yet. They are aquatic before they become airborne. The adult mosquito that later finds exposed skin begins as a small life suspended in stillness, growing in the kind of temporary water that the rainforest creates everywhere. That is why mosquitoes belong to the Amazon so naturally. The forest is a machine for making wet edges. Rain collects in bromeliads, tree holes, animal tracks, puddles, flooded leaves, slow channels, and human-made containers wherever people have disturbed the habitat. Warmth speeds development. Humidity helps adults survive. Dense vegetation creates shaded resting places. The same water cycle that feeds the forest also builds mosquito opportunity. Their power is not in strength, size, or social discipline. It is in matching their life cycle to a world that repeatedly produces the conditions they need. The adult feeding cloud begins with detection. A resting mosquito does not need to see a host clearly from far away. It reads the air first. Carbon dioxide is one of the strongest signals. Every breathing animal releases it in pulses, and those invisible plumes drift through vegetation like a chemical trail that does not belong to the animal's feet, but to its metabolism. To a mosquito, breath is not just breath, it is a beacon. A mammal moving through the understory, a bird settling into foliage, or a reptile warmed by the day can all alter the local atmosphere. The mosquito's world is shaped by gradients. More carbon dioxide here, less there. Warmer air this way, skin chemicals nearby, moisture rising from a body. Once carbon dioxide draws mosquitoes into the general area, closer signals refine the target. Heat matters because a blood-filled animal is a warm surface in a cooler airfield. Sweat chemistry matters because skin is not chemically neutral. Lactic acid, ammonia, fatty acids, and other odor compounds help create an individual scent profile. Moisture from breath and skin adds another layer. Exposed skin becomes a landing site, not because it looks dramatic, but because it gives the insect access. Fur, feathers, scales, mud, and movement can complicate the approach, but any uncovered patch of skin becomes a possible feeding point. The victim may feel only one high whine near the ear at first, then another. Then the sensation changes from irritation to pattern. This is the closing twist of the video. Mosquito swarming is not classic colony intelligence, but it still creates collective pressure. Hundreds of individuals can gather because they are all tuned to the same cues. The host becomes the organizing structure. Instead of a nest coordinating the swarm, the animal's own body does the work. Its breath marks the air. Its heat shapes the final approach. Its sweat gives chemical confirmation. Its exposed skin offers entry. The feeding cloud is not thinking together, but it is converging together. That difference matters, and it makes mosquitoes scientifically sharper than a simple, annoying insect chapter would be. Only female mosquitoes take blood meals, and even that detail is not random cruelty. Blood provides nutrients needed for egg development in many species. Sugar from nectar or plant fluids can fuel adult energy, but eggs demand more. The bite is part of reproduction. The mosquito's mouthparts are specialized for this job, not as a single crude needle, but as a precise feeding instrument. When it lands, it probes for a blood vessel, pierces the skin, and introduces saliva that helps keep blood flowing and reduces immediate clotting. The irritation that follows is the body reacting to that saliva. The tiny insect has turned chemistry into access. The real danger, however, is not the amount of blood removed. One mosquito takes almost nothing. Even a cloud is not frightening because it drains a large animal dry. The deeper danger is biological transfer. Mosquitoes are famous vectors because their feeding can move pathogens between hosts. In tropical ecosystems, that makes them part of a much larger disease ecology involving animals, microbes, climate, water, and movement. The mosquito is not merely feeding from the forest, it can connect bodies that never touch directly. A bite becomes a bridge. That bridge is why mosquitoes feel so different from the other swarm animals. Army ants reveal the hidden forest by flushing prey. Leafcutters engineer supply systems. Bullet ants and wasps weaponize defended space. Termites construct hidden cities. Mosquitoes weaponize attraction itself. They do not need to own territory. They do not need to hold a trail. They do not need to defend a nest in the moment of feeding. They only need the host to continue being alive, breathing, sweating, warming the air, and giving off the signals that make it findable. At dusk, the effect becomes almost cinematic because the forest changes its sensory balance. Vision weakens, heat lingers from the day, humidity rises, animals settle, drink, feed, or move toward shelter. A tapir standing near water, a monkey resting in foliage, a bird tucked into leaves, or a human pausing too long at the edge of a trail can become the center of an invisible calculation. The first mosquitoes arrive from nearby resting sites. Others follow the same chemical landscape. Soon the host is not simply being bitten, it is being located again and again by small bodies using the same cues from different angles. There is no drama in one mosquito. That is the point. The terror comes from repetition without command. One insect finds exposed skin. Another detects the same carbon dioxide plume. Another follows heat. Another lands near the ankle, wrist, neck, ear, or any place where blood runs close and protection is weak. The swarm is not organized like an army, but the outcome still feels organized because biology is predictable. A breathing body cannot stop broadcasting itself without dying. The host is trapped by its own signals. This is the final expansion of swarm intelligence. The hive mind is not always a nest, a queen, a road, or a colony wall. Sometimes it is a shared sensory rule spread across many individuals. Find carbon dioxide. Move toward warmth. Confirm skin chemistry. Feed. Repeat that rule across enough bodies, in the right habitat, at the right time of day, and the air itself becomes hostile. The mosquito cloud is not a society in the same way an ant colony is a society, but it still shows the power of many small nervous systems aligned by the same environmental information. By the end, the Amazon no longer feels dangerous only because of animals with jaws, venom, or visible strength. It feels dangerous because life in the forest is constantly reading life around it. Breath becomes a trail. Heat becomes a target. Sweat becomes a chemical signature. Still, water becomes a nursery. Exposed skin becomes an opening. Mosquitoes close the story by stripping swarm intelligence down to its simplest and most uncomfortable form. Not a colony thinking as one, but hundreds of tiny bodies arriving at the same answer from the same evidence. Feed here.